Hello, you're welcome to TV3. This is Agenda. My name is Deborah Kwabla. Today is the very last day of the year, and this is the last agenda show for the year. Depending on how you assess 2017, some say there were shocks, there were surprises, there were triumphs, some say there were major successes, and some also say there were tragedies. Depending on where you are or where you are standing, you would assess 2017 differently. Today on Agenda, we are looking at 2017, the major themes that structured or shaped the year. And I will do a little review of 2018. With me in the studio this afternoon to do the discussion from far left, we have Mr. Joe Jackson. He's the Chief Operating Officer of Delex Finance. In the middle, we have Professor Justice Baule. He's the Head of Department Public Administration and Health Sciences Management, University of Ghana Business School, Legon. And on my immediate left, we have Dr. Eric Odro Osai. He's a governance expert, he's a legal practitioner, and he's also a political economist. Welcome, gentlemen, to Agenda. We'll start with you, Prof. Very early in the year, in January, the president said we should not be spectators and that we should be citizens.
Yes.
Did it help to awaken our patriotism as Ghanaians?
Yes, thank you very much. And let me take advantage of this platform to wish all Ghanaians belated Merry Christmas, but also that 2018 will be a good year in all respects. I think that it was already the case that the momentum that the middle class Ghanaian and the average Ghanaian had been picking up is that they were going to be giving the governance space a lot of scrutiny. And so I think the president's call, whether or not, it would have still been the case that most Ghanaians would be or would have been very critical. And I'm sure that the call perhaps gave us the impetus to do it even more. And so you would see that there's been a lot of criticism. 1 year in government, and I see that there's a lot of pressure of government and its agencies and functionaries having to come every time to defend and to try and provide us people who say better and better particulars, and to be able to explain what they meant and what they didn't mean, to explain what progress they think they are making and what the challenges are. And I'm sure that going into 2018 and beyond, it's going to be even more. Ghanaians are quite a bit impatient now for governance, and I think that it would do the people in authority a lot of good if they came up to be very transparent and forthcoming with information, because it's one of the things that will help people to set their minds at peace and to follow the reins of government.
Doug, there around in February, the president also talked about wrongdoing not having a political color, giving a clear indication that there was something that was going to happen. How did you take the statement, and what's your assessment of how that statement has shaped things in terms of wrongdoing not having political color?
Thank you very much, and let me wish the whole of Ghana a Merry Christmas belated, of course, and then a prosperous New Year. I think the president's call was in order, and to tie into what Justice said, it's something that Ghanaians were expecting from the current government, especially looking at the campaign promises the government made, their zeal to fight corruption. So Ghanaians expected that the president will have to fight corruption from within. So making that statement tells us that he's somebody who is prepared to fight corruption. And then once you made those statements, then people would check whether you're going to walk your talk with the happenings after those statements. And it is true that you see that a lot of things may have happened after making those statements. And that is one of the reasons why civil society organizations and other people started putting pressure on the government to make do its promise of making sure that they set up the office of the special prosecutor. At any time there is this perception or impression of corrupt activities in the government, people put pressure on the government to react because of the statement the president himself has made. So I think that that statement was good. Ghanaians are up, are awake now. We are waiting to see how the president will react. But I think that all in all, in the year 2017, they've laid the foundation to fight corruption.
Mr. Jackson, the other part of that statement has something to say about vigilantism. The president said politics, wrongdoing has no political color, and so he's not going to protect anyone who takes, who breaks the law in the name of politics. How do you think we've fared with the issues of vigilantism in the year 2017?
Well, I take this opportunity to wish your viewers and your listeners happy and a prosperous new year. It is our fervent desire that next year will be much better than this year, wherever you sit.
Sure.
But on this issue of vigilantism, it became one of the biggest blots on the record of the current government, in that it was obvious that the government was handicapped in dealing with vigilantism. It was also obvious that there was a lot of self-censorship by the institutions that were supposed to even deal with the vigilantism. So you find the issues that happened in the court in Kumasi and its aftermath, and not just that, the incidents all over the country where what I would say, people purporting to be MPP foot soldiers who felt that their expectations had not been met and were taking the law into their own hands. Vigilantism, I don't think it has been dealt with fully yet. If you ask me, it seems like it's been swept under the carpet, and it's still there. There's still issues. I don't think that NPP as a party has engaged enough with its foot soldiers to try and meet the expectations. I think that it's been, its effects are, some people have given up. Some of the vigilante, some of the young men who or those involved have given up, which is not a good thing. Some have also been, as they say, if there's food in your mouth, you can't speak. So a few leaders they've got a few morsels of food in their mouth, and so they can't speak. But all in all, vigilantism is a massive issue. It is a representation of the frustration that is on the ground. It has to do it has to do with unemployment. It also has to do with the way we do our politicking. And it's not, and nobody should smile, because I assure you that this same thing will occur if the power were to shift to the other side of the divide, of the partisan divide, because there are also foot soldiers there who will think that this is our time. This is our time to take over, and we don't care. And it's something that really we haven't addressed.
Prof, the issue around winner takes all and political financing, is that something that we need to really focus on? Because otherwise, wanting to take over things when your political party is in power is a clear sign of winner takes all, isn't it? It
is, but I think that it goes deeper than just that. It goes deeper because the perception, and in fact not the perception, it is the reality that people who get into governance and governance positions get to be better off than the rest of us. It's become the case that once you get into government or you get a position in government or a state institution, your poverty is immediately overhauled, and the distance between you and poverty becomes like between here and heaven, right? So people see what happens, and it is the case that these are now...
Prof, why is this so? It shouldn't be. These are civil servants. These are people who work for the state and are paid, and we know most of their salaries.
Well, the truth is that, I mean, I was with Dr. Osai in Kumasi, and a few people came and made recommendations, and one of it was that they needed to see a public sector court set up to try public sector workers and government functionaries when they do wrong, because they think that people take advantage of the opportunities that are open to them, and they do a lot of things. And it's no longer the issue that is perception. It is the reality that if I got into government today, I should tell you something that is, my student called me 2 days ago.
Wouldn't the special prosecutor thing take care of?
Unfortunately, it will not. Unfortunately. I thought that this should be, but unfortunately, it will not. And in my view, I think that it's rather painful, but I've heard the talk about the fight against corruption. There hasn't been any fight. There's no fight that has started. Nobody has fought anything. There has never been a fight in Ghana over corruption, and there's never going to be a fight to be struck here. Special prosecutor will come, and we know what will kill the special prosecutor. If I were arrested today, or if I were charged today, you will see my village people come defend me, because what I steal, I take and then I go share with them. So it's a very complex thing. People now see political office not only as a service, but also as an appointment, and that it comes with perks. It's make people well. It's a poverty reduction strategy now. So that is why young people would fight it, because they see that their colleagues who got in there are better. Why would they sit? So they will fight it, and that's what then leads to the issue about whether or not it will be winner takes all. Because if we win, then whatever position that is available, we must take over. And we are taking over not because we have competence to be able to execute, but we see that that is a way for us to also deal with our poverty. And that will continue until we find a way of making the public service both attractive and unattractive. Attractive to competent people who still feel that they have competence to execute, and unattractive to people who think that they don't want to go in there because they cannot make money. Then it will continue. And to make the public sector unattractive for people who want money, we must make the private sector more attractive. So somebody knows that if I got a job in a bank, or I got a job in, or if I establish a business on my own, I will make much more money than what I will make when I go to government, or when I go into governance. Then
wouldn't that be a disincentive for getting the right people into government?
Well, then we will pay people well. And I have advocated that I don't support the cry that we should not pay public service people well. I think we should pay them well. So we can get the best. Because if I am resigning from a private sector job to take over the management of a state enterprise, I should be paid equivalent or even more because of the political risks that accrue. So I should get more, and so we should be able to pay more. But it should not be everybody. There should be options out of government where people think that I have other options, and that's why I think that this government's mantra of private sector development is something they must push and push harder to make sure that jobs are created for people who want to go out there and find jobs to do, rather than otherwise they will beat you up the next time. Somebody will come and say, you are not running the show well. It is me who, if yours is a public sector job. Otherwise, Dr. Osai will get a blue one day, or somebody will come to my office and say they want my seat because they think that they can be a better head of department, just because they think they can get much more money.
Doug, the issue of oversight, looking at our political structure, we have 3 arms of government, and the legislature is supposed to provide oversight on the executive. In 2017, what do you think? How has Parliament fared in providing that oversight?
Let me put it in context. The legislature is expected to provide checks and balances for the 2 other organs of government. In fact, in our governance architecture, they are expected to check each other. That is the more reason why, even if the legislature passes a legislation and somebody goes to the Supreme Court to set it aside, or to say that the Supreme Court should pronounce that that law is null and void, the Supreme Court can do so if they deem it fit. So there's that checks and balances. So if the question then is whether the legislature has been able to put the required check on the executive,
especially against the fight against corruption.
Fight against corruption. I would say that this bit or this aspect of our Parliament having the majority always having their way, and the minority having their say, is something that is really affecting us. Because Parliament as an institution can do a lot of things. Parliament in the past, or in the fiscal year of 2017, they've taken a number of steps, as it were, putting government on its toes to fight corruption. But I can say that it may not be enough. And it is not enough. It is not enough because I was expecting them to bite more. I was expecting that as soon as the Office of the Special Prosecutors Bill is passed into law, quickly they have to get to the executive to produce a timetable within which they will operationalize that law. Because there are a number of laws that Parliament itself may have passed, but operationalization becomes very difficult. We have a national anti-corruption action plan. This action plan is expected to be operationalized. I was expecting Parliament to drag the Shraj boss or any of the anti-corruption institutions to Parliament, come and explain what is the status of the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan. All these things may not have been done. So I am of the view that Parliament can do better. And we shouldn't leave it to only the executive. And at times, people think that it is only the executive that should fight corruption. The fight against corruption cuts across all the three arms of government, including us. The executive has its role to play, Parliament has its role to play, the judiciary has its role to play, because dealing with corruption cases expeditiously is one of the most important things that the judiciary can do. When you come to the legislature, making laws that are watertight, that would be able to ensure that it will serve as a deterrent, that will target the people who falls within the corruption chain. You don't make a law that targets certain groups of people, because every Ghanaian can become corrupt. You know, so I think corruption, as Prof said, is a wider issue. But I think the fight will start from somewhere, and the somewhere should start from this room, and the time is now.
Mr. Jackson, somewhere in March, there were taxes were abolished, and it needed to do something to the economy. Did it do that? And how is that supporting the cry for job creation? Because young people of Ghana need jobs, and they want it now.
I will come back to that, but I just wanted to make a comment on this corruption issue. I like what you said, that nobody is dealing with corruption. I mean, let's be frank. Even the legislature itself, right, had the smell of corruption all over it at the beginning of the year, to the point where there were accusations about appointments and monies that were exchanged hands, whether above the table or under the table or whatever you choose to call it. But the smell of corruption was all over the parliament itself. And talking about how we all have roles to play in the fight against corruption.
You think Parliament didn't do a good job by clearing its name over that corruption issue?
The corruption issue, there was a huge stench. There was a lot of smoke. I don't think that there was enough transparency to assure us that there was no fire. All we know is that in between Parliament themselves, they sat down and they sorted out their issues. But that's not good enough for the rest of us. And I hold Parliament responsible because the Right to Information Bill has also not been passed. And so long as that has not been passed, they are preventing those of us who are outside to assist in the fight for corruption. Because if that information bill is passed, then you can go for information that you feel is there and put two and two together and show, and even if it's for nothing, name and shame those who are corrupt. But it's not being done. And that we hold, some of us hold Parliament directly responsible. One, because they themselves had the smell of corruption all over themselves. Two, all the smoke that never came out, that there was a fire, whether the fire was extinguished before it became worse. Then this Right to Information Bill, it's terrible that it's not being passed. And unfortunately, the two sides of the divide just keep playing us like a ping pong ball. Pang, 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 pang. Everybody says, I want to pass it, but you didn't allow me to pass it. I want to pass it, you didn't give me enough time.
You think this parliament has taken too long in dealing with that bill as well? Because the last parliament tried to pass it at the very last minute, but it didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
And this parliament
we haven't even really started this round. We haven't really started. So it's a terrible thing. And as long as that bill is not being passed, as long as even within the arms that are supposed to provide checks and balances, there's this smell of corruption, we are in deep trouble.
How about the issue of
taxes?
Abolition of taxes.
Well,
and then
the taxes the taxes were abolished. As to whether they really put money in our pockets, that I think we can debate this for the rest of the day. Were some taxes abolished? Yes. Did those taxes have real effect
on the economy,
on the pockets of the ordinary Ghanaian? Forgive me, I doubt. Right? And you know, there was a lot of smoke and mirrors. right?
You saw a lot of smoke in 2017.
I saw a lot of smoke in 2017. And I listen, one of the challenges I have with the economy in 2017 is that we are in a really tough situation. Let nobody underestimate the job that the managers of the economy, the Honorable Minister of Finance, and the job that they are trying to do. But there are still some real issues we did not address in 2017. And for so long as those real issues haven't been addressed, unfortunately, there'll be a lot of talk, a lot of hope.
How about the requirement of graduates to deal with revenue generation and tax collection and all that?
Forgive me, please. I think that is a job for the boys. I think that is a terrible way to deal with a real issue. It was dealt with as an afterthought. That after things had been put together, then somebody says, let's do something for 100,000 graduates. And then 100,000 graduates. Did we look at the bill? 600 million for 100,000 graduates. How much per graduate? How much money are you spending per graduate per month? And is this money going to be put into proper effect? Or were we going to go the same way we went with GIDA, with YES, and with all those programs that have been discredited over time? And if you look at it, it's the same proposals that have been rehashed. Different programs, a sanitation program, health program. It's the same.
Planting for Food and Jobs is one of them. And
Planting for Food and Jobs is different from what do you call it? From this program. This program was an afterthought as well. I don't think it was well thought out. I'm too scared that it's just going to provide another avenue for chop in a discredited manner. Listen, there are real problems. There are real issues. We still spend over 80% of our revenue in paying two items: salaries and servicing debt, paying interest. 80% of our revenue. That is a huge elephant in the room. We have to deal with that issue. All others, we can talk, but once that issue is there, there's very little room for maneuver. I think Ghana is a blessed country. I tell you why. Because considering all these issues, that we were able to stabilize the CD and do some of the things that we were able to do last year, close to a miracle.
Prof, Mr. Jackson is seeing a lot of smoke, or he saw a lot of smoke in 2017. Have we done anything right, especially around the economy and things like that? Do you think there's something we've done right that we should be happy about?
I think that the African governments would usually have difficulties in their first year when they take power. And it is to do with the extent to which we don't have clarity on what are the major items that should be on the discussion table all the time. And so if I took over power, I was going to have difficulties realigning what the interests have been in the past to what the interests are going to be like. And so you would find, therefore, that a lot of the things that we will be dealing with will be to, for example, understand what the expenditure pattern had been, what were the figures that were not known that we now know, what were the things that didn't pass through the appropriate places but monies were spent on, how do we arrest, what are the debts that had been accumulated that needs to be cleared, and a lot of other very, very hazy things, exactly. So in the first year, people were, I was very hopeful, but I knew that this government was going to have a lot of issues to deal with all of these things. For example, paying all of the contracts that had been awarded and performed earlier, and all of that. And if you're a government and you inherit a state that has some debt accumulated, you need to think very sharp. Thinking sharp then means that you need to balance paying debt and doing new things. Now, if all your attention is focused on paying debt and say you want to clear all the debt, you are going to spend your whole year clearing debt. You will not do any new things. And the reason is that in the last years of every government, they spend a lot of, or they commit to a lot of projects because of elections. And those ones would always bloat your bill. And when you take over and your commitment is, we want to clear all the debt, then you are going to saddle yourself with all of the things that have to do with paying for things that have already taken place, rather than committing to new things that will spur growth. And so I am actually surprised that we have seen these tremendous numbers that are shown in terms of the growth estimates that have been given and all of that. But those also take time to crystal into job creation and into expansion and all of that. So if things would go the way they have gone, then we are going to be seeing a lot of I'm not an economist, so I'm careful about figures showing us that things are happening. But if those figures are to be believed, that things are happening, and therefore, agriculture sector is increasing very fast. The industry sector has gone up to 17%. The services sector is crumbling down somehow. But if these are things that would, then it means that in the second year, which is this 2018, we are going to be seeing a lot of young people getting jobs to do, because then industry will now be looking for more people and stuff like that. Did we do a lot of things well in this year? I think that the way the debts have been managed in terms of risk scheduling and rearranging them to create fiscal space was good. The economists would be better to speak a lot on these. The kind of confidence we had given the Ghanaian was also good, because then people felt a bit, things would work, and therefore the zeal to expect that things will work and all of that was good. Energy we dealt with, and I think that was extremely important in getting industry to start shooting up. So you see that is reflecting. Galamsey, I think we did very well. However, I think we need to look at the Galamsey issue very well, because the industry as a whole employs a lot. It creates, in fact, small-scale mining, including illegal mining or Galamsey. It's about a third of our gold or mineral, contribution to that sector, and the jobs that are created. And also there are a lot of big people in behind who are doing good business in there. So it has to be looked at well. Now we have succeeded in, removing all of the dirty things there. Let's now open our eyes and see how we can get that side back to ensure that the jobs that will be created there. I should be honest with you. The money we are spending on the guys who were in the pits and are out now to do planting, it's not sustainable. The business itself has to be looked at, and we need to look at that as fast as we can to make sure that. So that was another thing that we did well. Okay. We did well on education. Yes, sorry.
No, run it up for us.
Yes, education, I think
we'll come to education.
Yes,
we'll come to education.
Okay.
But dog, can we sustain this fight, Galamsey?
Definitely we should be able to sustain it. I've always been saying that, you see, if you want to fight Galamsey, don't tag it as illegal mining. What we need to do is, we have small-scale miners.
And that is legal.
That is legal. Legal small-scale miners. So once we know the contribution of this sector to our economy, we've allowed it to exist for all this period. What we can do is to put in place a transitional process of helping them to move from their current operational process to small-scale mining. And if possible, help them form cooperatives, guide them on how to undertake safe mining practices. Once we do that, we have converted their illegality to legality that can solve the problems in Ghana. But if you are pushing them out, the question nobody is asking is pushing them out to where? Those we are pushing out.
Are they there in the first place?
And why are they there? For the past 3-4 months, we have pushed them out. Who cares what is happening to them, what they are doing in the system? And these are people, some of them are armed. Some of them uses all kinds of chemicals. Some of them, and you see, there is a multiplier effect of their business. Because when you go to a typical illegal minor Galamsey areas, you have businesses there, you have hotels there, you have sachet water producers there, we have other businesses there. Now we collapse their business. I'm not saying that their operations are good. It's not good. But then we should have a way of transiting them to become very safe for us. That is why in every analysis, you do opportunities and threats. You can't convert your threat into opportunities.
But the actions that we're taking at the time...
The actions that we're taking were good, but then what was our plan B? You don't go in there to move them out without having an alternative. Because when you move them out, you create another security risk for us. And for me, that is the challenge. I will not be surprised if we have a number of robberies, a number of other social vices increasing in those areas because the guys are out there. And when you do that, you increase our security debt or our security budget.
So we need to deal with it.
We need to deal with it and look at the cost of even dealing with it. I'm looking out for a day when the ministry will come out and tell us that this is how much we have spent fighting Galamsey. And then let us quantify the social cost of social effect of Galamsey on the nation. You know, we need to do this cost-benefit analysis so that it will go into social policy development processes.
Mr. Jackson, briefly, there was this issue of conflict of interest that we dealt with from March, April, all the way to December. Now it's cleared in a few seconds. Just your thoughts on that.
Well, some of us thought that that conflict of interest thing was a storm in a teacup. And I think that to a large extent, the Shraj report cleared that issue up, right? It did also indicate a few areas where the procedure was not followed to the letter, but I'm not sure whether that is big enough.
So we should focus on the way we do these things. Procedure, follow them.
Procedure is always important to ensure that we not only do the right thing, but we are seen to be doing the right thing. So it's important. But I think, if you ask me, the whole conflict of interest thing, it was a storm in a teacup.
But we learned a lot from that.
We learned a lot from that, and we should be very careful about lambasting the honorable minister for the way in which those bonds were sold, because by bringing in money from outside and asking and getting foreign institutions and people to take on CD risk, they actually help keep the economy very stable over the year. And that was one of the things that we should have to give them credit for. That in a lot of the auctions that they did, in a lot of the sale of bonds, the money came from outside. And so those were inflows into this economy that helped stabilize what we're doing, help stabilize the CD, help keep our interest rates down, and interest rates, even though they are not as low as we would like them to be, all through 2017 kept coming down.
That's very important. Prof, in 2017, we had issues to deal with mob justice. The one that we will never forget as a country was the unfortunate murder of Major Mahama.
That was a very sad one. And if you went out of Ghana, a lot of people actually would ask you a question to your face. Oh, this issue that happened in Ghana, you know, and all of that. And so it was not just in Ghana that people followed. Outside of Ghana, people followed it. I think that it's I haven't heard too many of those happening immediately after this and up to now. Hopefully, and perhaps, maybe the major paid a price, a big price for Ghana. And it's very painful. But if that is contributing to cleaning the environment, then I'm sure that it's a painful death to the family and to everybody in Ghana, but it would have been something that he would have left as a legacy for Ghanaians to say that it was the case that when the major passed, mob justice stopped in Ghana. I pray that we don't get it again, and I pray that the security people will be very swift and deal with issues that come up to their fold. So yes, I think it was one of the biggest, or if you are the lowest point in 2017, and I pray that we don't get anything like that anymore.
That's very important. We all pray that mob justice will become a thing of the past. We'll go for a break. When we come back, we'll continue with a review of 2017, and we'll make some time and do a little preview in 2018. We'll be back shortly. You are welcome back. This is still Agenda on TV3. We are looking at 2017, analyzing the key themes in 2017, and we'll do a little preview of 2018 as well. My guests are still here. Prof, the president in August launched free SHS. Yes. And the first batch went to school in September.
Yeah, free SHS. I think it's if it probably will be one of the maybe the greatest smile of the president, but perhaps also the greatest nightmare that I'm sure he's dealing with. That's been a very ambitious project, and I'm happy it took off. That's not to say that a project such as that will not have issues. I think there are significant issues that we need to deal with. Issues of space is a very important issue. Issue of the role of teachers and parents would have to deal with. Issues of comparative treatment that has come up. For example, we hear stories about students who are in 2 and 3 are given better treatment than those that are. These are issues we need to deal with. I know the minister is working very well, but I think that they have to continue to dialogue, especially with the teachers and the headmasters and mistresses, to ensure that we need to engage all students to continue to support and do whatever they can to make sure that we don't get a failure. And the reason is that parents may be happy today sending their children to school and returning without paying. But in a year, 2, 3, they will want to see quality come up. And so issues of quality cannot be swept under the carpet. We need to deal with it. I know that they are working very hard. But we need to have the public participate in these discussions. People should be free to talk about it, and the ministry should be willing to listen to. Sometimes you get a sense that there is so much defense in wanting to say, oh, we have to do, and we have done it, and all of that. That's okay, because you need to be passionate about the policy. But I think that at some point we need to get the ministry listen and take on board concerns, take on board feedback, get reports from the field. I know they are doing that, but we need to work on that. But otherwise, I think Free SHS is an ambitious project. It will cost us a lot of money. But I have said that if, excuse my language, if we didn't use that money to pay Free SHS, it probably will find its way somewhere else. So I'm happy that I sat on this platform and said, politicians haven't promised us big things enough. They should promise bigger things, and they will put pressure on them to deliver. We've just seen the president commit to that. Let's see how we work to get it ironed out and properly delivered.
Mr. Jackson, you want to talk about Free SHS briefly, very and briefly. Then we'll look at it.
I just wanted to give you anecdotal evidence about the size of the impact of this Free SHS
Make it very
policy.
Brief.
My company gives loans to public sector workers on, that's one of our biggest lines. And each September, the loans spike up. They go up dramatically. This year, Free SHS meant that by our expectations, something like the loans dropped by anything up to 30+%.
Instead of going up? Instead
of going up, they actually dropped. That should give you the size, and this is only from my company, which, yes, we are number 1 or number 2 in the salary loans for public sector work, so we have a sizable part of the business. But it should give you an idea of the impact of Free SHS.
And that's just the formal sector workers.
And that's the formal sector alone. So when you translate that to the informal sector and look at the difficulties, then you get to, I must admit, I was not a great fan of Free SHS. I thought the issues of quality would overwhelm the process. But when I looked at the impact, I have to admit that truly that was one policy that put money in the ordinary Ghanaian's pocket. Even if it was reverse money, but at least meant that whatever you had, you kept.
Or you use that to get
something else. So I'll be honest with you, I've become a Free SHS convert. Because I just look at it and I said, wow, more than taxes, more than anything else, Free SHS put money in the ordinary Ghanaian's pocket.
One district, one factory. It was also launched in 2017.
Yeah. You see how from the high of Free SHS, you brought me down to one district, one family.
It's another ambitious policy.
It is, but we are identifying. That's what we are doing. We are identifying. We've identified districts. We've identified projects. We've identified and identified
but
identified.
Isn't it legitimate that we need to do a lot of preparations for a project like that to take off?
You see, here's the challenge I face. That project should be in the hands of the private sector. There's too much public sector talk, and it's not. If it's going to be another citizen, it's the private sector that must move and get excited and do this. I don't mind the identification and the this and the that, but I want to see that my average guy in the who is going to China to bring diapers and brings a couple of containers a week now has got his partners building a diaper factory in Ghana using wood pulp. Then I want to see that happening. I want to see 2 new crema established in on the road from Oda to Osamankesi. Then you know what crema is? Crema is the local oil palm refinery process. It's the old machines. That you see, and that will come from the private sector. This. As much as the planning and the government stuff is good, government is broke. It doesn't have money. It is the private sector. So as much as I want to see private sector people excited.
But you didn't see much in 2017.
No, I'm still hopeful, but I haven't seen it yet.
2017 ends today, so you haven't seen. Yes, please.
You will not see a lot happening. You will see the identifications and the rest, because you see
that's the groundwork.
The groundwork, because the one district, one factory. The factories are supposed to be in the districts, and we have 216 district assemblies in Ghana, and the districts are expected to identify these areas. Then after that, they partner with private sector operators. So in the first year, my understanding is that it will be a scanning process, identification of the factory or the areas of investment, and then the next year, 2018, is going to be the partnership issue.
So the launch in 2017.
Yes, so that is my understanding.
But my little challenge with that process is simply this: the private sector will go where he wants to go. The private sector will not be driven by a district's idea of what the opportunities are. The private, if I'm in the private sector and I have money, I will look for my opportunity. And if my opportunity comes, and like I use this diaper example, if it's the diapers I want, I'm going to be looking for the factory that is going to be most receptive to my diaper factory. It is not the factory, it's not the district that's going to call me and tell me to do this.
But
I actually think that there's a chicken and egg situation here.
You need data, you need information for you to take your decision as a private sector person. So if they have profiled the district, they have looked at areas of investment opportunities, and they're already available, and they invite the private sector that, look, these are the options in all the 216 districts. You can decide to go to metros, you can decide to go to municipalities, you can decide to go to districts. So what basically my understanding is that they are trying to profile them and make that data available to the private sector.
So they can be
you
ready
can pick and choose where to go, depending on the returns you want to get from your investment.
Dog, in 2017, we had issues with the Electoral Commission. Some highs, some lows. What's your assessment?
Yes.
All the issues we had with
all the issues we have with the Electoral Commission. I think they have their high side, their low sides. They were able to conduct, by all standards, a very good election. We were able to see power changing hands from a ruling government to an opposition. What I was expecting the Electoral Commission to do going forward was to capitalize on it, take advantage of what they've done, to perfect the system, using the lessons we've learned from the elections. But what rather happened, sadly, was the infighting that started. And this infighting has continued up until today. And my fear is that if we don't resolve this issue now, we are going to have problems. Because district level elections is coming up.
Referendum
is coming for the creation of regions.
In the pipeline.
Referendum will be coming for the election of GCEs. So we have to be very careful. Aside from that, the EC, the Political Parties Act, requires the Electoral Commission to ensure that any political party that contested in the 2016 presidential and parliamentary elections should by now file their accounts. And then the Electoral Commission will start asking questions. Because of the infighting, this has not happened. So my fear is that these backlogs would be carried on, and then you realize that the Electoral Commission would then come in and then last minute start rolling out a timetable that would affect the beauty of the elections we have in this country. So I think, yes, they had their good side and their bad side, but it is up to us as a society and up to us as a people to push the agenda to ensure that the issue is resolved early enough so that the EC can get back on track.
Well, Prof, you want to close the year for us. Unfortunately, in December, we lost students in second cycle institution to meningitis and then also to avian influenza. Unfortunately, that's how we...
Unfortunately, and it was very
one
unfortunate.
Of the very lows in the
year. It was very unfortunate that I saw that people try to link that to free SHS. It was rather unfortunate. It may be the cause, but we need to be able to establish that these are happening, because as far as I know, there have been some of these events or deaths, not only in schools, but also even in homes, especially in the north of Ghana, and all of that. Those were very difficult circumstances for us. I think the Ministry of Health, perhaps working along with the WHO offices in here in Accra, we need to work on those things. I got information from the field, because I'm from a rural area, that one of the major things that was not available was also anti-snake venom. That a lot of people actually died.
And these days also
that.
We have issues with rabies. I don't know what the
yes,
situation is currently.
So there are a lot of these things that I think the health ministry must work on. But that takes me to something very, very important: the burning down of the central medical stores. That up till today, we haven't been able to find who did it, and to deal with those people. I think we need to find those people.
The reports were issued?
Yes.
There's a report.
Yeah. So we need to deal with it. I told you about the fact that we are not fighting yet. No fight has started yet when we talk about it. So people who are responsible should be found and dealt with. Because I think it's one of the things that actually deprived us of a lot of these medical, things that we need to deal with emergencies. But I think our health, people should know that because of the conditions we have and coupled with climate change and the gradual increase in temperatures across the world, we are likely to see a lot of these things happening. Also, that they have to be very responsive or maybe proactive to look at the issue. So we anticipate that there are more students are going to be in free SHS even next year and the years to come. And if the first year we had something and we can attribute it to free SHS, then it means that we are going to have more, and therefore we must work at making sure that at regional and district levels, there are some stock of these things that can respond to emergencies. There are vaccinations, we should go ahead and vaccinate and things like that. So, but otherwise, that was a very painful moment for us, and I wish to extend our condolences to the families that suffered those losses.
They are still not recovered from that loss. It's unfortunate, because when everybody's child comes back from school and yours is not back,
it's really harrowing. It's extremely harrowing.
That's
something
difficult
you
to
don't
deal with.
wish on your
Mr. Jackson, 2018, what is your expectation?
On one hand, all right, we're very optimistic, and we're optimistic because even if you look at the international environment, most of the economies are now growing. The US is growing, China is growing, Europe is breaking free. Even Japan, which had suffered years and years and years of stagnation, is making a comeback. So the international environment is good, which means that the prices of our commodities should be able to hold up or even start to increase. And we're talking about gold, cocoa, oil, and stuff like that. So on one hand, that is good. On the other hand, let's not be confused. It's still going to be a very tight economy. The challenges this year stabilized things. This year saw some pretty decent growth. But some of the things that helped us grow last year will not be there this year. The FPSO, which gave us oil, we remember that the first one is going to be shut down for repairs. And so oil production is going to drop again. So, and if you look carefully at some of the numbers, you will see that a lot of the growth in this year, in 2017, was underpinned by oil revenues. That will not hold up for next year, for 2018.
So we should be hopeful, but we should also,
I would say, be hopeful, but manage your expectations.
Doug, what's your expectation for 2018? Very brief.
3 things. One, I want to see the Presidential Commission of Inquiry ending their work and submitting their report, and then practical processes initiated to ensure that regions will be created in Ghana. 2, I want to see the Office of the Special Prosecutor.
That requires a referendum.
Yes, but they've started, so we want to see it happening.
Want to see it happen in 2018.
Yes, I want to see the special...
That's an ambitious expectation from the
Office of Special Prosecutor being operationalized. And the Attorney General's Department is assuring us that Office of the Special Prosecutor will be able to prosecute and secure successful conviction of 75% of the cases referred to them. I want to see that happening.
And your third one? I
want to see strong efforts being made towards the election of DCs.
Prof, your expectation?
The first one is my expectations for the president. He should give us very clear indications about what his position is on the issue of dealing with corruption. To date, I think that sometimes we get confused. So
but he says it very clearly.
Yeah, you see, the body language usually is not the case. You know, maybe I'm too expectant, but otherwise it should be clear.
It should be clear.
It should be clear. Yes, it should be clear. This is not underpinned by the recent issue about what is it, the budget. It's not, has nothing to do with that budget. That budget for me, if you understand, this is your expectation. Yes, if you understand the progress. Okay, so my first is that let the president be very clear and let us see a lot of action on corruption. That's the first one. The second one is that we need to work at creating jobs. Whatever aspect of our economy we need to tighten to make sure jobs get created, because for those of us in the universities, it's so harrowing to see your students after several years and they are still asking you for jobless. Yeah, so we need to see that happens. So and I need to see us work very much at free SHS as well, because it's very important. So let's work at getting that done, and let's not forget that energy needs to be sustained. So whatever it takes to get us to banish doomsday forever.
But we did well. I pray that did a great job in 2017. Yes. Unfortunately, we have to go. Thank you very much, Mr. Joe Jackson. Thank you very much, Professor Justice Baoli, and thank you very much, Dr. Eric Odrosa. And thank you for being part of this discussion every Sunday. My name is Deborah Kwabla. God willing, same time next week. In fact, next year we'll bring you another discussion. Enjoy the rest of the year and Happy New Year in advance. Thank you.